Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley here in the studio. Later on, we'll be discussing why Shaka Islam may be delighted with breaking news. It looks like Isak won't be going to Liverpool. But we kick things off by welcoming Frank Leboeuf, and Alex Kirkland is with us as well. As Alex, we want to talk about the future of a superstar at Real Madrid, someone who hasn't been at his best for the last 12 months. And there seems to be a question now about his future overall at the club and Mr. Vinicius Jr.
Yeah, it's a one to keep an eye on for sure, Dan, because Vinny, we know he's got this contract at the moment until 2027, so 2 years left on his deal. And when you're talking about a superstar player, a club never wants a player to get into the last year of their contract, do this. So, of course, contract talks between Real Madrid and Vinicius Jr. started going into this summer, towards the end of last season, as I say, with 2 years left on his deal. Now, what we know is that the demands of Vini Jr. in terms of how much money he's asking for and what Madrid have offered him so far, there's still a big gap between those two figures. It's not a gap at the moment they've been willing to bridge. And at the moment, that's where we are. Now, of course, this was never going to be, I don't think, straightforward, despite all the noise we heard from, Vinicius. Every chance he got last season kept saying, I love being at Real Madrid. I want to stay. I want to be here for a long time. I want to keep making history. That's one thing. But these kind of contract negotiations between clubs and agents and players are another. And of course, Vini and his team have a very clear idea of his worth, what he deserves to be earning. But the club are trying to keep, a pay structure together, and they've got to look at other players, other big earners like Mbappe or Bellingham or whoever else, and make sure that Vini fits into that pay structure. So it's certainly one to watch. It hasn't reached a conclusion yet. We're not at a point, I think, or close to a point where they're, giving up on those talks. But at the moment, it looks to be at a bit of a standstill.
Well, it's interesting, Craig, we talk about contract talks, and let's talk about one that we talked about, obviously discussed a lot, was Mo Salah.
Yeah.
In the end, he stayed at Liverpool, signed a big contract. Slightly different, obviously, because he was in his last year. But what's interesting in that scenario, Salah was holding all the cards, yeah? Given how good he'd been that season, how important he'd been to Liverpool.
Well, Vinicius was holding a lot of cards this season before.
That's where I'm going. It's not quite the same now, is it, for Vinicius?
The season before, when they won the league and they won the Champions League, and he was effectively partnering Rodrigo before Mbappe got to the club, he was outstanding. Last season, and I
You came up with these stats, didn't you?
Going to take me a little time to digest.
Yeah, no, successful takeovers.
I'll let the stats, graphics are there for other people to read. I'll say this. We shouldn't single out Vinicius Jr. for having a bad season last year, because he did, but he was far from the only one, and an unsuccessful season for Real Madrid. But bearing in mind, he probably believes he's the big cheese alongside Kylian Mbappe. He certainly didn't show that last year. His performances were substandard by his standard. Alex mentioned wage structures there. This is the problem, and we talked about it with Mo Salah. Because there's some talk over Luis Diaz at the moment at Liverpool, searching for a new contract. And the trouble is, even when you know you're not on the level of a Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool, who's the captain, or a Mo Salah, your wage demands tend to go up when you know the club have pushed the boat out for other players. And that is the problem when you open that door. When you pay 2 or 3 players extraordinary amounts of money, then it is only natural that the others will go, well, okay, I know I'm not going to get what Kylian Mbappe's getting. I know I'm not going to get that, but we are a long way away here. And by the way, I think I'm as important as him. So it's a very difficult scenario for a club to get into, because you want the superstars, you want to bring them in, you want to keep the ones you've got, a la Liverpool. But as soon as you open the doors to humongous wages, guess what players do in the dressing rooms? They talk.
Yeah.
They talk, and they don't specifically say, oh, I'm on 500,000, whatever. But they kind of chit-chat amongst themselves, and there is a ballpark they know. And if one player fails, he's getting left behind, and he is a big player in that team, and then there is a big gap. That's a problem for the player, for his agent, but just as much for the club trying to re-sign him.
Take us into the dynamic of a dressing room like that, Frank, where obviously you've got someone like Kylian Mbappe who's come in, who hasn't won the Champions League, as of course the rest of the team have, yet getting paid more weekly than any other player.
Yeah, that's a concern, but it is what it is. And I remember, signing for Chelsea, and after a while talking to Dennis Wise, for example, Wisey, who have been there for a while. And it's hard for players like that because they've been there to change their contract and to get as high as somebody just coming. And that's what it is. So Vini Jr. has to know that and be aware of that it's quite impossible for a former player, let's say a player who have been there for a long time, to get the same as somebody just coming and who has proven, like Kylian Mbappé, that he deserved that. But that's a concern. But what it is, for me, it's complicated to give today to Vinicius Jr. the same amount of somebody who just came up because of his performances last season. He would have asked that a year before. He should have deservedly get that. But this season, it was all over the place. And to go to the board and say, oh, I deserve the same amount of Mbappe. I say, I'm sorry if Mbappe get that, but that was the demand and the offer. But you've been quite not good last season, so why do you want? And if you give us the same season the next season, well, we're okay for you to leave because you're not the players we were expecting to see. So for him, it's not the right time to ask for anything.
But you don't want to slam, before we go back to Alex, we don't want to slam the door in his face, which I'm sure they are not. Because what Real Madrid and particularly Xabi Alonso do not need is a very unhappy, sulking Vinicius Jr. this season. That is going to be no good for them on the field. You think about Barcelona, you talk about the front three last year. It was the front three. Yeah, there was times we talked about Lamine Yamal, and other times we talked about Rafinha and Lewandowski scored goals, but it wasn't one of those players on his own. And with Rodrigo sort of on the sidelines or on his way out, Real Madrid need Vinicius Jr. if they're going to be successful to be some sort of foil for Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe is not going to do it on his own. If Rodrigo's out and Vinicius Jr. has got his head turned because he's not happy, Real Madrid will be unsuccessful. So they need to play a fine line here in terms of, taking the negotiations forward with him, but keeping him happy so that he's playing well on the field, because Xabi Alonso needs a Vinicius Jr. to be helping Kylian Mbappe if they're going to be successful in Spain next year.
The news cycle always is continuing in Spain, despite the fact everyone's on holiday at the moment, regarding Real Madrid. Alex, what's filling the papers?
Yeah, I mean, it's all sorts. A lot of it is about Rodrigo and his future, which is still uncertain, especially given his limited involvement, his sort of reducing involvement all the time at the Club World Cup under Xabi Alonso, what should have been a fresh start for him. And Bellingham is the other one. Bellingham's been on the front pages after his shoulder surgery this week. It's something that Bellingham kind of signposted during the Club World Cup. He said a couple of days after the tournament finishes, I'm booked in for shoulder surgery. This shoulder issue that's troubled him for sort of 2 years now. We've seen him wearing this kind of strapping during games and him not being comfortable. He talked about how uncomfortable he'd been. So he's had this surgery now. I think one of the headlines on the papers today was sort of learning to live without Bellingham and what they're going to do in terms of being without Bellingham now, we think, for anything up to 3 months, because they waited to have this surgery after the Club World Cup, knowing that he then missed the start of the league season.
We've asked you for a starting 11 without him, Alex. How do you think they will set up with the current squad they have?
Yeah, look, of course it's a problem being without one of your best players, which Bellingham evidently is. But I also think it's an opportunity for Xabi Alonso, because it hasn't been easy to sort of fit all these puzzle pieces together. I don't think it's straightforward to fit Bellingham into a team with Mbappe and Vinicius. Xabi Alonso talked about Bellingham being a midfielder, seeing him as a midfielder. That's not how we saw him used at the Club World Cup. It was sort of in between the midfield and the front two on the right-hand side, almost of a front three. So I think without Bellingham, in a way, it gets a little bit more simple. I think it allows Alonso to play the midfield two of Fede Valverde and Arda Güler. You could bring in someone like Rodrigo, who's perhaps more naturally suited to that right-sided attacking role. And like I say, I think the system sort of works without Jude Bellingham. That doesn't mean they won't miss him. They won't miss his goals. They won't miss his leadership. They'll be desperate to get him back. But like I say, in terms of making this team kind of fit together, having an important piece, but one fewer piece, I think actually in a way makes it more straightforward.
Frank, I know you've got, two new pieces there with Alexander Arnold, Huijsen as well. But you just look at that team overall, and it's very easy to think back to last season, where a lot of those players didn't turn up in big matches, didn't perform at the level that you're expecting. And it's a big ask now. It's going to be very interesting, isn't it, for Xabi Alonso to see how he gets those players back to the best, back to the team that won the Champions League just 2 seasons ago.
That's going to be tricky because you will need the all involvement of all the team, and we all know that with Mbappe and Vini Jr. it's quite impossible because they don't want to defend. They don't be part of the dark side of the football player and of the game. And on top of it, they have to be stronger in the middle of the park. And I'm sorry, Valverde. Yeah, you have Fran Garcia who can do the job, but I don't see them playing with 3 offensive players at front, and even with Gonzalo Garcia in the middle of the park, it's too much offensive. They have to settle down people. Güler cannot play in the middle of the park. He doesn't defend enough, and with the 2 others, it's impossible. And maybe another defensive midfielder alongside Valverde would be good. But otherwise, they're not strong enough defensively. And remember how in Bayer Leverkusen, Xabi Alonso used to play. He was strong. He was firstly strong, then let the offensive player do the difference. But you have to be strong, and they're not strong enough.
Champions League is always Real Madrid's aim, yeah? But you look at the way that Liverpool have added to their squad. PSG are only going to get stronger now with experience, you feel, from what happened last year. I just look at that starting 11. If I'm a Real Madrid fan, I'm not that excited.
I look at that 11 and I just see warning signs for Xabi Alonso and pressure and trying to figure it out. And if he does go with a back 3, which he did, not all the time at Leverkusen, but quite a lot of the time. Obviously, big signing on the right side with Alexander-Arnold, but Carvajal back fit again if they want to go to a back 4, a more solid full-back. The left side, I mean, Fran Garcia, he actually was one of their better players during the Club World Cup, but I'm not holding that in any high regard. That's a weak point for them. Now, Huijsen, I think at Bournemouth, if memory serves me right, they played a back 4 more often than a back 3. So for Rudiger and Huijsen, that's getting on the outside. You almost find yourself in the full-back positions at times. And sometimes as a centre-half, you get out your comfort zone. So it's going to be new to a lot of these players. And one of the things Ancelotti talked about last year was finding the right balance. Do you remember when he said, I think in the bigger games, I have to take a forward out and put an extra midfielder on. Now, we tried everything, and it pretty much didn't work. I think he played 4-4-2 at Arsenal at the Emirates and got absolutely played off the park in that particular game. So he really couldn't find anything that was working for him. Whether Xabi Alonso can do the same with some of these attacking players remains to be seen. But I don't look at that side in terms of recruitments, in terms of signings, or in terms of who was there last year and maybe better. I don't look at it and think, wow, that's a side that's going to frighten all the teams in the Liga. In fact, I don't think it will. I think it's a Real Madrid team that will give you opportunities to get at them.
A concern I'd also have for Real Madrid is the lack of kind of buzz around Rodrigo. Alex, I think it's fair to say that I think he would quite like to leave. Real Madrid would like to cash in on him. But we've been talking about the links to maybe Arsenal or Bayern Munich, but they've really only been whispers that doesn't seem to have much substance behind them.
Yeah, I think he was hoping for a fresh start under Xabi Alonso, having disappeared from the team completely under Ancelotti since the Copa del Rey final when he went off at half-time. And at the Club World Cup, as I say, he started off, he sort of played less and less as the competition went on. I think he played, 60-odd minutes in a game against Al Hilal, then he played 20-odd minutes against Salzburg, and then it was only 4 minutes in the knockout stage. In 2 of Madrid's 3 games in the knockout stage, he didn't play at all. That's not a good sign for Rodrigo. I think in an ideal world, he would like to stay at Real Madrid, but he wants to stay at Real Madrid if he's important, if he's playing. He hasn't been happy playing on the right-hand side. Previous under Ancelotti would prefer to play on the left. That's just not going to happen. In terms of potential signings and departures for Madrid for the rest of the summer, the club seem to be saying, for now, players will only come in if players leave. And Rodrigo is one of those players who could leave. As you say, there's a market there in the Premier League. Arsenal may not be that likely given the numbers involved. Liverpool have been linked in the last couple of days. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that. But certainly in terms of possible departures, Rodrigo is one. In terms of that 11 as well, I should say, Dan, one name we haven't mentioned who's due to arrive in August is Mastantuono. Very talented young player. He's going to join when he turns 18 from River Plate. And I haven't done enough of him to know how good he is, but a lot of people who have say that he's ready to come into the first team, and he'd be another option on that right-hand side as well.
Meanwhile, I've heard rumours that you were invited to Lamine Yamal's birthday party, Alex, but you had to sign an NDA, so you can't tell us anything about it?
I think my invitation must have got lost in the post or something, Dan, because I was waiting, it never arrived. I'm the life and soul of the party normally. Obviously, it would have been great for them to have me there.
Now, given...
but no, I didn't attend.
Now, Alex, obviously, you live in Spain, I've lived in Spain. I know how much coverage these sort of events get, not only from the sporting media, but the daytime media as well, kind of like the tabloidy sort of programmes who just embrace this sort of party, this sort of lifestyle. And I imagine for Lamine Yamal, it really is going to be a baptism of fire. On the pitch, he seems fine, but off it now, it's going to be very interesting to see how he handles all this media attention.
Yeah, there's definitely a tabloid element here. Also, you know, some sort of Spanish celebrities were invited. You had social media influencers invited as well to this party. At the level of scrutiny, I wouldn't say it's unprecedented, but, you know, it's getting that way. In terms of Lamine Yamal's profile as one of the best players in the world, playing for Barcelona, being a superstar. I think Barca have always been very, very conscious of looking after him because they've known for a long time what a talent he is. You know, they've done this for years now. This is a kid who comes from a tough background, a tough neighbourhood in Mataró, one that he's very proud of, but a difficult place to grow up. And the club have always been, like I say, aware of trying to look after him, and that continues. You're also seeing, as you always do here in Spain, you know, a lot of the criticism of him and whatever it is that he is or isn't doing, of course, comes from the other side, fans or the media that isn't aligned to Barcelona. I think the club are well aware of this. I think a lot of this in terms of the attention is inevitable, but they've got to look after him. But like I say, they've been aware of this for a long time. I think they've known that this is coming as well, and I think it's just about handling it as best as possible. You know, we've seen this so many times. At least with Barca, they are very well used to players coming into the team very young and becoming superstars. Sometimes it works out and they go on to be sort of the best version of that, you know, Messi or whoever. Other times it doesn't work out for all kinds of reasons. Someone like Ansu Fati, who we thought was going to be the next big thing, and injuries took their toll on him. But Lamine Yamal, I mean, right now, his trajectory has been explosive and better than anybody could have possibly imagined. But like I say, I think they're well aware of just how important it is to look after him and give him the right kind of advice and the right kind of environment to continue to kind of fulfil his potential.
But you can't.
Does he need Uncle Craig and Uncle Stevie to go across there, look after him?
No, that's the last thing. Absolutely, the last thing that he needs. But you can't.
It's tough, Craig. He's 18. The world, you know, is his oyster.
You can look after these players and you can give them everything they need to succeed, and you can give them all the advice. And Hansi Flick just seems like such a calm, wise, great man manager. But you know, can't follow him around 24/7.
Yeah,
he has a life to lead outside of, you know, when he leaves the training ground on a midweek or whenever it is, or when he plays on a Saturday or a Sunday and he leaves the stadium and he goes home. And there are pitfalls out there as we always talk about, but I just hope that, and listen, we're getting away down a street that he's not even walked yet. Let's just see if he can get anywhere close to doing what he did last season next season, because we saw him in the flesh at the Montjuic for that last Clásico of the season. And if you haven't seen this guy live and you watched it on TV and you think, wow, you have to actually, he is actually a player. When you sit there and watch the game, and there was a lot of talent on the field that day, a lot. But he was the one you just went, wow, this guy's incredible, just what he was doing there. He had the whole crowd almost on the feet. And that's a difficult thing to do for season after season. Only, to my knowledge, and we keep bringing this up, and what makes them so special in their generation is that Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi at the elite level in Spain and England, they absolutely chummed out the greatest of numbers year in, year out. That's going to be the big challenge for the superstars coming up through the ranks like Lamine Yamal, 18 years old, 19, then he gets to 20. He's a targeted player, not just off the pitch. When he's having a meal, or he's in a bar, or he's with friends, everybody wants a piece of him. But on top of that, when he's on the field, everybody wants a piece of him, because he's a marked man. And he's a man that defenders will target, he's a man that managers will target, and he's got that big sort of cross on the top of his head now. Whether it's you know, in La Liga on a weekend, or whether it's in Barcelona on a Saturday night, it doesn't matter. He has propelled himself into a position, Daniel, that he's going to be, as Alex said, he's in the spotlight 24/7 now, and that for me is going to be very interesting, but I also think very difficult for this young man to handle.
Of course, Frank, in your head, you're in the spotlight 24/7 as well. How do you handle it?
Very well. I've talked to the birds are taking pictures of me in Normandy. You know, it's spiders, rodents, you know, it's very hard to cope with them. And but you know what? Seriously, I was thinking about what Craig was saying, and I remember, you know, having the chance to play with Zinedine Zidane and having a life around him, you know, where outside of the field. It's a real nightmare. Those people cannot breathe. They cannot have a normal life. I remember, like, imagine 15 years ago, after his career, we had a dinner all together, and after we say, okay, we're gonna go for a little drink. We were like 50 years old for myself and 45 for Zizou. The carry was over. The guy said, no, I'm gonna go back to the hotel. I can't go out. It's a nightmare. They don't have a life. I don't envy them, because people don't understand that they need to breathe. They need when I say people, I say media, but also people down the street. They want to touch them. They want to talk to them. They are like a dream, which I understand, but they don't realize how hard and heavy it can be for those players. So I think for Lamine Yamal, it's new, so it's maybe enjoyable. But very soon he's going to be fed up, and it's when he will have to be very cautious. He will have people surrounding him to make sure that they can protect him, and he doesn't do big mistakes, because otherwise, you know, media is going to be terrible to him.
Just like us in Glasgow, really, many years ago.
You were lucky there were no camera phones
Celtic,
then.
you know, when you're...
Goodness gracious. To make the move, of course, for the US international, 30 million from Real Betis. A good step up for him, of course, Alex.
Yeah, and a big signing for Atletico. They've been looking for this kind of player for a long time. For a couple of years now, they've wanted a really dominant central midfield player, what they call kind of a number 5 here, an all-round kind of box-to-box player. And I think he fits the bill. And like they tracked him for a long time. Simeone, of all accounts, really likes him. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to be important. And it's another big rebuild for Atletico. They spent big last summer. They're spending big this summer, as you say. You know, Alex Baena, Johnny Cardoso, Thiago Almada as well, confirmed this week. This is another significant investment from Atleti after a season which promised, as has often been the case with them in recent years, promised earlier in the season and ultimately failed to deliver. But yeah, I think Johnny Cardoso is going to be a really key player for this new Atletico team.
Good stuff, Alex. Thank you very much. Where are you going for holiday, Alex, before the La Liga starts?
No, I'm done. My holiday's finished. I'm back to work already.
Oh, no, get the violins out. Poor Alex. Just a reminder then, not long now until the new La Liga season kicks off. And for Atletico Madrid, their first game is away against Espanyol on Sunday, the 17th. Our transfer talk over on our website. There has, of course, been a lot of discussion about a forward that Liverpool have been interested in. It seems to have moved from Alexander Isak now to Ekitike. Oh, crikey, O'Reilly. Ekitike to make
Just
the
call
move.
him Hugo.
No, Ekitike is not hard to say, but then it gets in my head.
Well,
but it's fine. Ekitike, it looks like, actually, according to reports, this is very close to happening. Apparently, Liverpool want this done by the weekend. Archie Rintutt joins us. Frank's still with us as well. Archie, is he a good fit for Liverpool? I suppose it's the obvious question to start with.
I think he'd be a good fit for any of the top teams in Europe right now. He is a baller, quite simply. The form that he showed at Eintracht Frankfurt last season, even if I think there's still room for him to go to. And then the following season when PSG tried to sell him, he wasn't up for that. And it took him until winter to then actually move to Frankfurt. And since he's been there, he's been built up again and, yeah, has gone from strength to strength. They wouldn't have reached the Champions League for this coming season without him. And, yeah, he's a real joy to watch.
Frank, obviously, you saw him at PSG. You kind of saw the bad Ekitike.
Yeah, that was very complicated for him, I would say. But You know, Archie just mentioned the fact that the three superstars were there, so it was hard for him to have a little room. But Ekitike maybe clicked. Maybe something happened playing in Bundesliga for a big club like Eintracht Frankfurt. I've been in the stadium, the pressure is big, the atmosphere is great. So maybe something happened to him and he became somebody else. I had doubts about him when I saw him playing for Paris Saint-Germain. He was doubtful in front of the goal, asking too much about, wondering too much what he had to do, no instinct, no flair. And I saw him last season. That was a different player. So is it because he handled the pressure in a better way, or because he was belonging to a club with less pressure? That we don't know. If he goes to Liverpool, that's going to be a question mark. How can he handle the pressure?
And how does he adapt his game? Is
this all happening because Liverpool don't think they can get Isak
yes, exactly.
out of Newcastle? Yeah. Or certainly they can get him, but they're not prepared to go to that figure, which Newcastle are probably holding out for a king's ransom, and that is understandable. And so Ekitike is sort of their sort of backup, not to disparage him at all, because he is a very good player and certainly been playing very well in Germany. They need somebody that can come in and be a little bit different to what they have and be more clinical, obviously, than Darwin Núñez. They're looking for somebody who was going to do the job that Darwin Núñez was going to do for them, and has, generally failed to have any sort of consistency. If it's the Eintracht Frankfurt Ekitike coming in, playing back in front of and around somebody like Florian Wirtz, and then you have Gakpo and Salah and the wider areas and this sort of free-flowing Liverpool side, yeah, he's got every chance, absolutely every chance. But it's not easy. When Darwin Núñez came in, he came off one of his best seasons in his young career at Benfica, scoring goals for fun, bashing defenders around, leading the line, looking $1 million, and he wasn't able to step up to that next level. That is always going to be the question. It was the question for Alexander Isak when he came in from Real Sociedad to Newcastle, and in all fairness, it took him a little bit of time to find his feet, and then he did, and he has been sensational. And that is always the question here with players coming in. But on the face of it, it looks like if it goes through, another good bit of business for Liverpool, particularly if they can't get Isak, because they need to fill that slot. Youngest player, talented, scoring goals, got a bit of everything to his game. And at the moment, there is no, to my mind, and certainly off the top of my head, there is no club in Europe who seem to have their ducks in a row better early on than Liverpool.
Yeah, and it's another Bundesliga player coming across along with Wirtz and Frimpong, Archie.
Yeah, exactly. Albeit, I think that just looking at that Liverpool team for next season, my eyes just widen at the possibilities there, because to have Frimpong as an option in terms of the speed that he provides you out wide, I mean, seeing him being positioned there at right back does not do justice for how much he gets forward. To have someone with the speed of thought that Florian Wirtz has as well, let alone all the tricks up his sleeve, and then Hugo Ekitike as well, who is also capable of an instinctual, inspirational moment. And it means that from a Liverpool point of view, if teams sit back against them, which they will do, that is the only option, I think, for some other teams in the division when you have that kind of quality coming up against you, even if there is a greater strength and depth in the Premier League than ever before, still teams are going to try and defend against Liverpool. But with those players that they brought in from the Bundesliga, it's going to be a very difficult job. Hugo Ekitike as well, I just want to credit another part of his game. Sure, he's good on the ball, but off the ball as well. There are so many occasions where I just remember him picking a defender's pocket out of nowhere, and it's that kind of work rate, I think, that he'll be valued for by Arne Slot, amongst other things, because he's proven that he's not just a striker whose brain is only on when his team has the ball. He's also thinking about, okay, how can I influence the game? How am I reading the game when it's not in our hands? And I think that from the modern striker, that's crucial.
If he does sign, what's the over/under and how many times you're going to?
Ekitike, it's fine. I just need to get. No, it's fine.
Like,
I can get. It's just a
I
little,
reckon about.
a little bit of practice.
Season.
No, it's not. It's not a Tronoglu, is it? I can manage that.
Well, you haven't managed it. You've been struggling with that for about 5 years. I reckon the over/under's about 20.
No.
And you
Ekitike, I can do that. That one's all right. That's okay.
All right, we'll see.
We will, of course, be discussing a lot more about Liverpool and their title challenge over the next few weeks as we count down to start the Premier League season. Of course, as is tradition, the curtain raiser for that season, the Community Shield, is live on ESPN Plus from Wembley. Crystal Palace taking on Liverpool. Please sure to join us August the 10th, 9:30 Eastern on ESPN Plus. We'll say goodbye to Frank for the moment. He'll be back with us on Extra Time. Oh, there's Jan's smiling. What's up with Jan's eyes? Anyway, let's just talk about a couple of Americans who are making their move to the Bundesliga as Archie in touch still with us. Malik Tillman, they're spending a lot of money on him, 35 million to get into Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, it'll be a very different Bayer Leverkusen to the one that we left last season, Archie.
Completely down, because no Florian Wirtz, no Jonathan Tah, no Jeremy Frimpong, but most crucially, no Xabi Alonso. And that creates a completely different dynamic. Erik ten Hag coming in with a point to prove. And for Malik Tillman as well, he was previously at Bayern Munich. He grew up in Germany. He knows what it's like to be in a Bundesliga environment, but has struggled to show real consistency before at Rangers, but then had a better time of it at PSV under Peter Bosz. And I wouldn't expect him to necessarily play all the time or as much in the number 10 role. So I don't think he needs to worry too much about having to replicate what Florian Wirtz did, because also, spoiler, he won't be able to do that. But I think Bayer Leverkusen might see him more in a number 8 kind of role, pushing on from midfield, something of a box-to-box player, because that plays to his strengths. It's just question now, he's still in his early 20s. Can he fulfill the kind of expectations that he has of himself, having been a young player at Bayern Munich? That, I think, does certain things to your head in terms of what you're expecting of your career. And now is an excellent time for him to prove himself. I think that in some ways, sure, there are larger expectations at Leverkusen as caused by the Xabi Alonso times, but in many ways, people aren't expecting Malik Tillman to be as good as Florian Wirtz. And so in that sense, he may still have some room to play with.
Meanwhile, Archie, just a couple of years ago, we were talking about who's going to be the most important player for the US at the World Cup in 2026. Will it be Christian Pulisic or will it be Gio Reyna? However, they have both very much trended in different directions, haven't they, since those sort of discussions. Are you surprised we're at this stage where Gio Reyna's looking for a club?
If there's not a consistency of fitness, then how can you get a consistency in your form? And I think that's the case for Gio Reyna. Honestly, watching the amount of games in stadiums I do, you follow some stories closer, and obviously having to watch Gio Reyna go through what he's gone through was honestly heartbreaking. It was when he was making a comeback from injury and I saw him going off down the tunnel crying away at Stuttgart a few years ago, that honestly, my heart still bleeds for the guy, and I just hope that he's able to get back playing regularly so that he can find some sort of rhythm. And when I say playing regularly, I mean playing 90 minutes. Because at Dortmund as well, if you're an attacking player, like he is, and you've had to play under 5 different coaches, full-time coaches, whilst he's been at the club, and you've had the injury record that Gio Reyna's had, how do you find your rhythm within that? He needs to go to a place and maybe do something similar actually to what Mario Götze did, who went to PSV Eindhoven a few years ago and was a central character. And Gio Reyna needs to get that main character vibe back, particularly ahead of the World Cup. And to be honest, having seen him suffer through injuries as much as he did, I really hope he does that.
So maybe Eredivisie, something like that, take a step back take a step
he
forward.
pitched up at Nottingham Forest and okay, look, it might not have been the right fit for him, the way they play and all that sort of stuff, but he made pretty much no impact, and he had barely any game time to do so, but that also is an eye-opener when the manager does not feel that he can put you in. And what's worrying here, and Archie talked about the injuries, is when you're picking up so many injuries and you're still so young. Yeah. That's the sort of mindset, that's the sort of worry internally in your brain that at 22 years old, he's had 3 or 4 years, it seems to me, of these constant niggling injuries. Nothing to mind off the top of my head. It's not like he's had an ACL or something like that, not off the top of my head anyway. A lot of it has been niggling, it's been groins, it's been hamstrings and so forth. And that's normally the thing that starts to hurt a player when he's in his late 20s, early 30s. And you start, as your body changes, and you've played all these games, and you've played all these seasons, and normally then you start fighting the muscular injuries. He's doing it, and he's had to do it so early in his career. And that, for me, is just a big concern. I would be really, really concerned about this young man getting himself back on track. I just, at this moment in time, his career it's not Dortmund. It's not going to be there. He needs to get somewhere. Both of you have touched on this, where he's going to somehow be able to keep himself fit and he's going to play. It doesn't have to be a team at the top of a league. It just has to be a decent standard, and he's going to play and he's going to find himself again. And if he can stay fit in that period, wherever it is, then he's going to give himself a chance. It's a bit like Pulisic to an extent, right? AC Milan won the league, I don't know where it was, 3 years ago, whatever it was, but they've not been close to winning the league recently, right? They've not really been competing per se. They were, I think, 7th or 8th at one point in Serie A last year. They were in the Champions League, but they get comfortably knocked out. But he found his feet there at Milan, and all fairness to him. He was playing every week. He was one of the better players. The crowd liked him, and he responded to that, even though they were not challenging Napoli and Inter at the top. They were nowhere near strong enough to win the Serie A title, certainly in the last couple of years. But he was better than Rafael Leao. He was more consistent than some of these other players. And somewhere along the line, Gio Reyna needs to find a club that's going to give him that. And if he doesn't find this soon at 22 years of age, his career is going to continue to go in the wrong direction.
Archie, we'll say thank you very much. Countdown to the Bundesliga. Have you got a holiday before it all kicks off, Archie? You're travelling around the country for us?
Holiday, mate. Pre-season now.
Yes.
Right, holidays are over.
Exactly.
Club World Cup.
Just hours and hours of pronunciations with Derek. Getting it right, getting ready to go for the kick-off of the new campaign.
See, it's not just players that the Club World Cup stuffs everything up for.
Yeah.
Journalists as well,
exactly.
And everybody.
It's actually got the Club World Cup from that. Bit of MLS action. Inter Miami has seen Lionel Messi score braces for fun of late. He was starting against FC Cincinnati. This would not go the way, though, of Mascherano's side. 16 minutes in. Venezuela here would make it 1-0.
Yeah, nice little ball down the channel, and just runs off the back of the centre-half here, who's a bit square, and the finish from a really tight angle is really good.
This is just before the break. Messi trying the acrobatic here. Oh, dear.
Shinned it.
Oh, no. That's it.
He's embarrassed.
He's embarrassed.
He's embarrassed himself.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Evander then makes it 2-0.
Let me see. A little bit
There you
of toe poke in his path. Yep. Nobody wants to bring him down.
Yep.
There we go.
He would get 2 goals within this game to make it 3-0 here. Oriano with the assist. Yep.
Ooh, maybe the Club World Cup's taken it out of Inter Miami. I don't know. I'm just going to squeeze the Club World Cup into most discussions.
Oh, well, how fortunate for us.
Over the next 12 months.
10 minutes to go in the game. Messi once again with the acrobatic effort.
Poor. Just poor.
That's it.
I mean, sell him.
He's done.
Sell him.
There you go. Cincinnati then get the 3-0 win. And that puts them now within touching distance of Philadelphia Union at the top of the table. For Inter Miami, they're sitting in 5th. One more for you. Minnesota taking on LAFC 5 minutes before the break. Ebavise would get brought down, a penalty for LAFC here. This would prove to be the only real goal of the game. Yellow card.
Yeah.
There we are.
Might as well need a set of binoculars for that.
It's a good angle. Boanga scores then to make it 1-0. LAFC then pick up 3 points, much needed for the West Coast side. Just confirmation they're sitting fourth.
What's the line at 7 and then the line at 9?
So that's for the playing game. That's the playing game.
That's the
8th
play-in.
and 9th. Yeah, exactly.
Just give everybody a medal. Just give everybody a medal.
In the Eastern
the whole
Conference
10.
as well. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Frank and Craig with us today, the former Chelsea boys uniting to answer some of your questions.
Very positive on Chelsea.
On Chelsea, yes, exactly. Now, singing from a completely different hymn sheet now.
Dispelling the myth of the paranoid out there.
Yes.
Anyway.
For the boys, with such a great backline and top-flight midfield, if Arsenal seal the deal for Gyökeres and Eze, do they have a good chance of unseating Liverpool and winning the Premier League?
Yes. Good chance.
Yeah.
Nothing's guaranteed, because Liverpool, you may have noticed, have also strengthened. But yeah, I mean, if you get a goal scorer, which everybody has agreed for quite some time now, they have needed, and obviously they signed Zubimendi. They've signed, did Madueke that deal go through? I think it did.
Yeah, why not?
I've not really heard too much else. Pointless going to you on that one. Shaking your head. And if they sign Eze, he's a different type of player.
Yeah.
He's more of he's a wide player, but he likes to float inside and scores goals, assists, very tidy England international. So it would be, if they got all these players, there would be no real room for manoeuvre for Mikel Arteta for a bad season.
It'd be good for us, wouldn't it, Frank? And we talked about the fact that it was a little mediocre last season. You have a front line that has Eze, that has Gyökeres, that has Saka. That's what you want to see in the Premier League.
Yeah, of course. We complained about the Premier League and the level of it last season. That was the first time that maybe we could be unhappy about the Premier League season. To see players like that, if they settle down well, yeah, it can be very interesting. They can chase Liverpool. Let's see how Manchester City goes, and of course Chelsea. So we want an interesting Premier League season. That's the best season. That's the best championship in the world. We want the best player in the world, and we want to debate and see, with the odds every week with Craig, who's going to win and who's going to finish the first 4.
Frank, do you think Hansi Flick will change some things in defence? And how far will they go in the Champions League this season?
I think, it's been kind of stubborn last season where everybody agrees, no, they can't play so high and it's going to be terrible and blah, blah, blah. But he kept on doing that and he won the La Liga, so why would he change? And it worked with the player that he has.
I think that's what it'll look, wouldn't it? The way that it went down against Inter over those 2 legs, defensively they were so shocking. I think that's what he's going to have to address, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe, but it's 1 game out of a season.
Well, it was 2 games.
Yeah, it didn't work. Everybody. Yeah, 2 games. Yeah, it's okay. He scored many goals. So yeah, you're beginning very picky. But the thing is he showed to the world that the way he wanted his team to play the first year that he was in charge worked at the end of the day.
But it didn't work.
So many
question
marks.
Let's get into Frank.
Yeah, but he won.
He won La Liga.
Yeah,
he won La Liga. He won everything but the champion. Only one team can win the Champions League.
We'll just do the same again and it will work.
No, but you have to agree that Inter Milan won against Barcelona and be smashed against Paris Saint-Germain. Do you think Paris Saint-Germain would win 11-0 against Barcelona? No, it's not mathematics. It's a human being game, and sometimes some stuff don't work. And it didn't work for Barcelona for 2 games. But overall, what a season they had with a risky kind of high-level defense. They exposed themselves. But it worked, so why do you want him to change the system? I don't think he will.
Every weekend I'm going to talk about...
What are you doing to the desk?
I don't know, I'm just cleaning. Bored, really. Every weekend...
That's how our viewers feel.
Thank you very much for my comment.
Every weekend, even if we're doing Real Madrid,
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about Barcelona's high line.
Oh, okay.
Just because I know it gets under the skin of Barcelona.
We've got a few
talking about high lines again. How can he be talking about this when we're super successful? It's great. It was great to watch, but it was sort of kamikaze kind of stuff. Which you're right. It was really good, but it was the Inter game showed the sort of flaws to that side of it. Otherwise, it could have been a near perfect season.
For Frank, start, bench or drop. Oh, it's another team that don't like us. Chelsea's final upsets. The Champions League against Bayern in 2012, the Champions League against City in 2021, or the Club World Cup against PSG in 2025. What was the most special? What was the least special?
Go and have a cup of tea.
Well, in terms of importances of the games, I go for at the order that it is: Bayern, then City, and then Paris Saint-Germain, because we don't really care about the Club World Cup. But I have to say that what they did against Paris Saint-Germain in that final, that was absolutely amazing and surprising. But still, I think the first Champions League win against Bayern Munich with a draw by late goal was amazing. City, it was interesting, but we had no fans because it was during COVID, so that was nice but strange. And it was a very good surprise, but not very important trophy comparing to the others.
I think 2012, because the City game, Guardiola went into this overthinking, didn't he? Strange lineup. You know, he played no holding.
I don't think you can take that away from Chelsea.
No, I'm not taking away.
I don't know why you're trying to.
No, I'm not trying to
poo-poo their success.
I'm not.
You're saying that City lost it and Chelsea didn't win it.
I'm saying
that's not very nice. It's your former club.
I am saying City Guardiola made a pig's ear of his team selection. It was a real shocker. Tried to play Gundogan as the only holding midfielder, and they got taken apart in the middle of the park. The win against Bayern was huge, not just because they beat Bayern in the final, but because they beat Barcelona on the way. And that was a Barcelona side that was way better than that particular Chelsea side. So just the way that they got to the final in 2012, when they were...
And they beat Bayern in Munich. Sorry, the final was in Munich on top of it.
Yeah, there we are.
Anyway,
thank you, Frank.
Enough about that.
Frank,
I've got some cleaning to do.
Mark Ogden says that his favourite American food is...
Burger.
A Hershey's bar. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what a Hershey bar is.
It's
I've never been there.
It's a chocolate bar. It's not very nice.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I know. Okay, wow. Well, he's English, so you know.
No, but we have nice chocolate in England.
You know. No, we have no chocolate, but you know nothing about food. In France, we know nothing about music. In England, you know nothing about food and wine. So we keep that.
Yes.
We love each other or we hate each other, but let's say that the music is in England and the food is in France.
Yes.
Let's say. But no, well, Hershey bar. No, I don't know. I like Mars and. Whatever it can be, but I don't like Hershey bar. No.
Augie never had much thinking outside the box there, did he? A Hershey bar.
No. Well, there you are. It's very Augie. How long do you think Xabi Alonso lasts at Real Madrid, Craig? More than a season or a quick exit?
Well, I would say the odds are more than a season. However,
it is Real Madrid.
There is a percentage of a quick exit in there because it's Florentino Perez, it's Real Madrid, it's player power, it's results, it's Barcelona. I mean, if Barcelona do what they did last year and come out the traps like that and play like that, and Real Madrid are spluttering, does Florentino Perez go, well, this is a rebuild, I'm going to give it a bit of time?
Well, he's never done that before.
Exactly. So I'm going to go 70% for seeing out the season and a bit more, and I'm almost a third that if it goes pear-shaped, he'll get binned.
Well, that's 33%, isn't it?
I said almost a third.
Don't think you did.
I got the almost.
Don't think you did.
I did.
Frank, your percentages?
I want him to be successful. I mean,
it's not about your wants, it's about your needs. What will happen?
I want to believe that he would be able to change things and change the mentality of the two superstars. That's the secret of it. If he doesn't change the mentality of the two superstars, he won't last long because he won't be able to change them, he won't to substitute them or to put them on the bench, and he will have to deal with them, and it won't work. It won't work, so it's not going to last long. So hopefully, it will have the secret messages or speeches to make sure that they're going to understand and they work with the others.
Did you give me percentages in that?
Well, I give you 75% that he's going to last.
That's a season.
Longer than
Okay,
a season.
So 25%. Craig, should Amorim walk away this summer? It's just had enough already.
Sponsored walk.
As he's only signed Cunha and in Mbeumo, what if that doesn't go through with Sancho, Garcia, Rashford still at the club?
I don't know. You look at what everybody else is doing, all the sort of so-called bigwigs in England. The big cheeses, the ones that United should be in amongst: Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, Newcastle potentially keeping their best players. And what are they doing?
Yeah.
Flapping around still.
I know. It's...
With a manager that... Are you telling me that... Is anybody looking at Ruben Amorim, if you're a United fan, if you're on the United board, if you're a United player, is there anybody looking going, hey, this guy was great in Portugal, isn't that great? They're looking and going, he has been disastrous in his time in England, because he won't change anything, he's steadfast, and these results were borne out. Where did they finish? Fifth bottom in the league. I think Tottenham finished fourth bottom. Ange Postecoglou obviously got the sack, won the Europa League. Their results were horrendous and he changed nothing. And so there can't be a lot of confidence in what, never mind in the squad, but in terms of what he's bringing. Because what's he going to do next year? Is he going to start the season and say, hey, I'm holding my hands up? You know, the last 2 years, or whatever it was, the last year, when I said I'm never changing, well, I'm going to change. And things are going to be different. He's not going to do that. So why would results be dramatically different with a kind of similar playing squad? I don't see it.
Final question for you, Frank. As good as the new signings are, Liverpool is running into a situation where half their side may not have played with each other. Would they still be considered favourites, or would this pose a question mark next season?
Well, you know, last season we wonder with the new coach how they would deal, and they got the title. So I want to believe that Slot will find the magical way of making that team playing together and knowing each other very, very well, quickly enough to not lose points at the beginning of the season. But football is a worldwide game, and everybody knows how to play football. And if you listen to the coach and the tactic and your teammates around you, it should work. You know, I was barely speaking English with Craig Burley when we played together, and we handled it. So it can work for the others.
You're barely speaking it now, aren't you?
And that's it. That brings us to the end of today's show. We'll leave you, though, with news that England are through to the semi-finals of the Euros. You've been to cover it during the show, but obviously it went to extra time and penalties. They were 2-0 down against Sweden at one stage, but fought back in the second half. No goals then in extra time, saw it go to penalties, and the defending champions then make it through to the semi-finals of the Euros, where they will face Italy, of course,
they will be knocked
after
out.
that dramatic win against Norway. Meanwhile, the other side of the bracket kicks off tomorrow with favourite Spain taking on Switzerland, and it's the big one, France against Germany. That is it then. That brings us to the end of today's show. ESPN FC back on your screen tomorrow. 2 days in a row for Craig Burley. Good luck to Kay. You'll be moaning by tomorrow.
I'm in Saturday.
You're in Saturday as well?
Yeah.